brings a lot of people. I've had people comment on that and say that it's brought them a lot of comfort because they're trying to be neurotic about it and, balance to the milligram. And like, you're driving yourself up the wall. You're
Oh,
driving
good.
yourself
Well,
crazy.
I'm happy to hear that. And I'll tell you what, I walk that line because I am someone who's incredibly anal about what I feed my own dog, right? I obviously love the formulation side of things, and I love formulating my dog's diet. In fact, the fact that she's on a 30-day raw milk diet right now on just the kefir, I mean, she is getting cheese treats, but that's raw dairy as well, kind of kills me because I can't formulate her meals,
You're bored.
Um, exactly right. But, you know, the main thing you want to do is, and I kind of talked about this at the Raw Natural Dog Summit in Chicago, is you don't want to balance through numbers. You want to balance through using whole foods. And it's better to say, I'm going to balance this using these whole and especially reproductive foods, using separate foods that are complete food systems in and of themselves. So the whole premise of that talk was to say, okay, if you're feeding a commercial raw diet, you can take, and the calorie specs of this commercial raw diet, and the calorie specs of a whole fish, and the calorie specs of raw milk. All of those things are independent food systems in and of themselves. They're all balanced, right? Not only just obviously in something like calcium and phosphorus, but balanced just generally in nutrients. And so you can then, do as much of this commercial raw as you wanted in this meal, or as much milk as you wanted, or as much fish as you wanted, or as much egg as you wanted. And those would all be complete food systems. So I encourage people to balance through that rather than saying, I can know, because as we've talked about, you can pull USDA database of what is in a chicken egg, and it's not what's in a chicken egg necessarily that I buy at the store that's pasture raised or whatever it might be. And so
It was the average of what was in X amount of eggs that they used to get that number.
yeah, and we know nothing about those eggs, right? And so,
Right.
and it's especially true in animal products. I mean, if you go to the store and you look at the average that they're probably using for beef, and you get, like a 30-to-1 omega-6-3 ratio, people are like, oh, you need to add omega-3 to beef. Well, if you go, there's this wonderful restaurant and burger. They have a fancy restaurant, which is where I go for every special occasion. And then they have a burger restaurant, and it's called Bel Campo in LA. And they have a farm, and they raise all of their own meat, right? It's 100% grass-fed beef. They raise they have eggs. They do a lot of stuff. That meat has tested out consistently at a 1-to-1 omega-3 to 6 ratio. So to that,
That's crazy.
if you feed that, you have to add nothing to it because it's more about the ratio, obviously. So that kind of stuff matters. So, I would encourage your listeners to buy the highest quality, most appropriate version of any food that you can, be it eggs, meat, whatever. And you're pretty much going to balance out, not only the fat ratios, but the nutrient ratios as well.
Two things. One, you're now my official superhero because you go to a burger place for special occasions. Number two, we need to have you back on to specifically talk about this whole concept of reproductive foods, because the first time that you talked about it on our first chat absolutely broke my brain in the best way. And it has created all kinds of awesome results from the people that I've shared it with since then. So I think that we really need to dive into this topic separately, because if I start talking about it now, we'll never get to the rest of the veggie stuff.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. We, it's a huge part of what we do, my home formulation, and also it's a huge part of obviously what we do at Answers, using, we sell more raw milk, I believe, than anyone in America. So, it's a huge part of what we do. So I'd be happy to come on and talk about actual results and not just theories about, what a wolf would eat, but let's talk about, let's look at case studies and that kind of stuff. So.
Yes, we need to do that. We'll get something scheduled, because that absolutely has been a game changer for people. All right, moving on. So fact or fiction. One of the things that people talk about is that you can't give your dogs whole vegetables because of cell walls and cell membranes and all these different things. So fact or fiction, can dogs utilize the nutrients from vegetables if they are whole vegetables? If I take a piece of broccoli, break it off, and hand it to my dog? Is it just
Yeah.
going to come out the other end, or are they going to be able to actually digest and utilize the nutrients in that food?
Mostly fact. And I say mostly fact because